What's the Nicole Kidman show that you and I talked about on my podcast? There's
They're all the
murder.
same show at this point.
Oh, you're so successful. You're
should
so
be
rich.
happy. You've got the man, you've got the kids, the house, the job, everything. And
No.
lo and behold, someone gets murdered. Like,
Just
it's
misery.
just not good.
Just abject misery.
Anne Helen Petersen, thank you so much for being here. I know your work intimately. I'm obsessed with it. But for those who aren't in the know, how would you describe your beat?
I always say it's culture because that allows it to be everything. Because anything is the culture around us, right? Like politics is the culture around us, but also the history of celebrity is the culture around us. So saying that it's culture allows me to spread a very wide net in terms of what is interesting me in a particular moment.
Let's talk about a new phrase you taught me recently, Anne Helen Petersen.
Feminist exhaustion.
Yes. I was reading your lovely Substack, read the whole essay. I liked it a lot. And then I said, oh, I haven't heard of this idea before. Feminist exhaustion. How would you define it for our listeners, for our audience?
You know, I was trying to come up with a way to connect all of these topics that have been my low-key obsession over the last, I don't know, 4 years. Let's say like pandemic forward.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tradwives, right? But like everything that kind of seeps down from tradwives, like
Mm-hmm.
canning culture and like clean culture, organizing culture, all of the stuff kind of in that realm of
Optimization
like
culture. Yeah.
optimization, self-care, like that. Also just a ton of rage that
Mm-hmm.
I feel coming from people who are older than me or people who have been really involved in activism and are like, we have been fighting this feminist fight for so long and we are going backwards.
Mm.
Also, younger people really rejecting understandings of feminism that are being passed down or represented to them by their parents, their grandparents, right? Like cringe at millennial feminism just broadly.
Yeah.
The anti-girlboss movement and like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't want that life, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
stay-at-home girlfriend, which is a different iteration of tradwife. It's like, well, what if I just didn't have to work?
Yeah.
Or, um, and then also I think like a lot of conversations about women who no longer want to have kids. And it's not necessarily because they don't want to have children. It's more like, I don't know how I can do those two jobs in America at once
Mm-hmm.
anymore, like my job and the
Yeah.
second job, which is a full-time job of raising
Yeah.
kids. And then like exhaustion with intensive parenting practices, which are essentially like what we understand as the new norms in parenting, which is like
Mm-hmm.
constant supervision.
Yeah. And like
And
constant enrichment of your child.
yes. Oh, and an optimization of your children.
Yes.
And
Yes.
abject terror that is sublimated
Uh-huh.
that your kids are going to fall out of the middle class,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
a downward mobility
Yeah.
in your family line and how
Yeah.
much that motivates decisions that people have. And then like this exhaustion with individualism, no one being able to make friends, which is
Mhm.
also a like kind of post-pandemic thing of like, I forgot that like friends are good.
Yeah.
And like I have to say yes to things. And then the last piece of it, I think, would be like this also low-key hatred of husbands. And so you see this in all of these women who are actually getting divorced and are like, getting divorced is freaking awesome.
Yes. The
Come
happiest
join me
people
on
in
the
my
other side.
life are women friends of mine who are divorced and over 40. They are
Yes.
so free.
Mhm.
They are so free. Even the ones with kids are free because the husband or ex has to have them half the week. Like, they just
Exactly.
yeah.
Talk about division of labor. And
Uh-huh.
then the women who have not left their marriages, oftentimes because if they leave them, there will be resultant downward mobility. Like their
Yeah.
lives are very much locked into this
Mhm.
dual income or one large income
Mhm.
scenario. And like, how will everything work with like, where will we live? Like, will we have to get,
Mhm.
someone have to get an apartment? All of these things that it keeps them locked into marriages that make them miserable.
Mhm.
And part of the thing that makes them miserable is not like, oh, my husband's an oaf, although sometimes that's it. It's more like I have 2 kids, but actually 3 if you count my husband, ha ha, right? Like, just,
Yeah.
like, this
Yeah. An
infantilization of
adult
husband,
child.
adult children, and a real refusal or a difficulty in actually splitting the labor of the home.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that's a really long explanation for,
But
like,
I
how
like
I was
it.
like, "How do I talk about
Yeah.
this? What's
Well,
going on?"
and I like the phrasing of it because when you say feminist exhaustion, you're not saying post-feminist. You're not saying feminism is over. It feels like you're saying the women of America writ large know what feminism was supposed to be.
Right.
It hasn't really panned out. And so they're not saying no more feminism, but it's maybe on pause and some other trends are ascendant.
Right, so, like, there's a backlash towards what this idea of feminism is, right? And so
Mhm.
when you say, like, feminism didn't really do what we wanted it to do, I wanna be super clear that what we're talking about is the feminism that got elevated, which is a
Yes.
pretty hollowed out understanding of
Well,
feminism.
and it was an
It's
upper class,
yes, very white,
high-minded academic white
educated,
feminism. Yes.
oftentimes completely evacuated of, like, the economic component, which is that, like, if we want liberation for women, we need liberation for all people.
Yeah.
So we need to actually like think
Yeah.
very like a rich white lady like killing it as a CEO that is not like
Yeah.
automatically feminist because there's
No.
representation,
And it
right?
usually means that there is a woman you never know who is working by the hour,
Right.
probably a woman of color, raising that white lady's kids with no social safety net at all.
Yep.
No safety net,
Exactly.
you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this defanged version of feminism that was like, if I say I'm a feminist, then everything that I do is feminist.
Mhm.
That is has refused to incorporate the intersectional elements that so many people have worked so hard to try to make part of feminism,
Yeah.
right? Like,
And it failed to include the ways in which rampant capitalism
yeah,
is an impediment to
yes,
fully realizing feminism.
right.
The lean in model of feminism holds hands with capitalism,
Uh-huh. Totally.
you
It's
know?
like consumption feminism, right? It's like
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
buy more and work more, then feminism. And that's
Mhm.
like that's a dead end, right? Like
Yeah.
and I think like this idea and so many people I think will recognize themselves in this is like, okay, so if that sort of liberation, if like we're not going to have full liberation, what if I just work myself into the ground to try to achieve feminist aims for myself, right?
Yes.
If I
An
try to have success,
individualistic, like, I can't
to
change
have
the
it all.
world as a
Yeah.
feminist, but can I make my life feel feminist enough and good enough to feel good about it?
Totally. And like a very like individualistic, like really focused only on the fate of me and mine, like my family, very American in
Yeah.
many ways.
Yeah.
So that idea of feminism has failed us. And so
Mhm.
you have the people who still are trying to fight this fight, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of them are like, I want a more intersectional feminism. Like these are people who have
Mhm.
done the work, are doing the work, and they're exhausted
Mhm.
because the work is not working.
Yeah.
And then you have people who are exhausted in a different way. They're like, I'm rejecting that. And that
Yeah.
can be younger people, that can be older people who maybe grew up as feminists and now are disillusioned and are saying, well, like, fuck all this. I'm going to be a tradwife. Like, I am very drawn to that understanding of
Mhm.
a very different way of being.
Yeah.
Like, this is so much simpler if I just
Yeah.
work one of these jobs instead of two.
Yeah. Well, and this is what I wanna dig into because in this show, in my world, I'm just obsessed with the ways in which these big ideas show up in the pop culture that we consume, particularly TV and movies. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can think about this kind of final gasp of monoculture before the internet tore us all apart and streaming effed up our viewing schedule and habits. But there was a moment, I'm thinking back to everyone I knew getting together to watch Scandal and
Hmm.
live tweet it.
Yeah.
And that show felt in a very Shondaland kind of way, black girl bossy,
Mhm.
and consumption feminist. Kerry Washington's character was the fixer of all fixers who had the president wrapped around her finger. She wore great overcoats and drank her red wine while eating popcorn at
Popcorn.
night. And it was like this version of a powerful woman that you wanted to root for, and I think it, like, represented a certain kind of,
Yeah. Like,
cartoonish feminism, but,
so
like, there was a
profoundly
moment of
lonely,
that.
like,
Yeah.
so lonely, definite eating disorder,
And
like,
drinking disorder. She was an
like,
alcoholic.
I like, just, like, only thinks about, like I mean, I guess she was also thinking of the fate of the Union, like, the country in
Kind
some
of.
ways,
She was
but
more obsessed with, like, her grudges against her father than, like, making sure the
yes.
Union preserved. But
Yeah.
all this to say, it felt like we had a version on TV
Yeah.
of a certain kind of performative feminism 10 to 15 years ago.
Mhm.
And now when I think about you talking about this idea of feminist exhaustion that we're
Mhm.
going through right now as a country right now, I don't know if I see it on screen.
Well, so something like Scandal or I think Girls, there's so many shows that, like, to me, they are actually feminist dystopias. They are people
Oh,
living
new
out these
term.
lives
Tell
that
folks.
are
Yes.
ostensibly feminist. Like, I have it all. I'm successful. I am juggling or I'm juggling marriage and career, and everything sucks,
Yeah. Kerry
right?
Washington doesn't get the president. She's just cheating with him.
Right. Or in
All the
Girls,
girls and
like,
girls are a mess.
are a total mess, and not just because 'cause they're in their 20s, like, dating and sex and all of these things are just
Bad
gross
sex,
and
bad
bad,
jobs, bad
right?
relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't even like each other.
Or what's the Nicole Kidman show that you and I talked about on my podcast? The one where there's the
They're all the same
murder.
show at this point.
I know, and I say this in the piece, I'm like, every Nicole
Everything.
Kidman vehicle in the last 10 years
Yeah.
is a feminist dystopia because it's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you're
Yeah.
so successful,
You
you're
should
so
be
rich,"
happy. You've got the
and,
man, you've
like
got the kids, the house, the job,
yes.
everything, and
No.
lo and behold, someone gets murdered. Like,
Just
it's just
misery.
not good.
Just
Yeah.
abject misery, and I think that that speaks to that feminist exhaustion. It's not like a one-to-one of, "Look at this feminist, she's so tired." It's more this twin fascination or, like, magnetism to shows like that that represent, in a way that seems resonant, just how
Uh-huh.
miserable contemporary have-it-allness it actually
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
and then this kind of dual magnetism to these shows that are like ostensibly tradwifey, like something like Secret Lives of Mormon Housewives,
Yeah. Yeah.
even though
Yeah.
all those women actually work all the time, right?
Oh, yeah.
But
They
it's
work more than
like
their husbands do.
100%.
Yeah.
But a show like that, or just like the endless discourse around something like the Ballerina Farm account, right?
We
Like
should tell
these
folks what that is because I had to Google it when I saw
uh,
it in your piece.
Ballerina Farm, that is Sam, I love you for that. Ballerina Farm is, I think, the most popular trad wife who would never call herself a trad wife. She is a housewife, Miss Universe contestant, or Mrs. Universe contestant. That's for people who are married.
Oh.
Uh, Mother of, I believe, 8 who lives on a gorgeous farm in Utah, and completely absent from the narrative of this story is that she's married to one of the sons of the JetBlue fortune.
Oh.
Uh-huh. And
Oh.
she's also a Juilliard-trained ballerina.
Huh.
Yeah.
Damn.
But gorgeous, like, homestead-style home that also has I think it's like an $8,000 stove in it that looks like it's an old-timey stove. It's a stove from the UK that you can cook bread in and that sort of thing, and they sell hogs. You're gonna like this. Her
Uh,
husband, who has a particular look, you're gonna have to look him up when we're done
okay.
recording, but
Yeah.
his, Instagram handle is hogfathering.
Wow. Wow.
Uh-huh. Oh, and they're
I love
Mormon.
it. Of course. Of course. So then it seems as if for a long time now, we have either been watching shows that prove that a woman really can't have it all,
Mhm.
um,
Yep.
or we're watching content online now from the trad wife ilk that is leaning back into what some might call antiquated versions of womanhood and family life. Have we seen in the last decade or two stuff on screen that like presents the attainment of some kind of feminist happiness?
I mean,
That
I
sigh.
don't know. I
That
don't know.
sigh.
I think that, like, the places I look are much more to, like, this younger generation, which, like, it's so cliche to be like, "The children are our future," but, like, Gen Z is trying to figure out, I think, a different way forward. So,
Mhm.
so much of the anxiety over things like quiet quitting or, like, bed rotting or just Gen Z not being involved in, like, the hustle culture of millennials, that's
Mhm.
anxiety really over, like, "This is a part of me that sucks." But, like, if the
Mm.
next generation doesn't reproduce it, then that only underlines that it sucks. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. 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 It is really interesting to kind of unpack these ideas because I think now, as soon as you introduce the idea, not just of feminist exhaustion, but feminist dystopia, I realized that any time that I've seen something that felt like the perfect execution of aspirational feminist or feminism, it was actually kind of a lie. I'm
Hmm.
reading that tell all book on Facebook
Oh,
from
yeah.
the
Yeah, yeah,
former
yeah.
senior staffer who was a high up in their policy office. And she basically tells you over hundreds of pages that everything you thought about Sheryl Sandberg was incredibly wrong. Incredibly wrong.
Right.
And so, with all of this media that we're consuming now and that we've seen before, is it all just telling us over and over and over again there is no perfect attainment of these feminist ideals? There never was. You were too hopeful.
Well, I think at least under in American society, under our current iteration of capitalism, no, there's not. Like,
Wow.
we can't do it. We can't without, like without
Yeah.
subsidized, childcare,
Healthcare,
without
education,
elder care, like,
baby
with
leave.
yeah, with, like,
Yeah.
really ossified understandings of that are actively trying to keep women out of the workplace. Like, we need women in the workplace. We acknowledge this as, like, this is how our society works, but also we should not make it easy for any woman. And this is this tension, I think, between these, like, foundational conservative ideals that have to do with, like, all the way back to the founding of the country and Puritanism, but also with, like, the theocracy that is trying to take hold of the government, like, many of the rejections of any sort of plan for universal childcare or
Mm.
for, like, any care
Yeah.
network or thinking of it care as infrastructure is
Yeah.
coming from these politicians who don't wanna make it easier for people to be outside of the home,
Mm.
who still want us to live in this fantasy space of every home has one adult who stays home with the children.
Mhm.
Even though that's not the
Mhm.
reality, but I think
No.
people wanna keep that as this ideal, and so long as we're still working towards that, it's always gonna be broken.
Yeah. Yeah. So much of what I'm getting from this from your Substack, from this chat, is that, like, when you think about it long enough and hard enough, there aren't many portrayals on screen that get at fully what it's like to be a real woman in the real world and the issues that real women deal with.
Mm.
I think about a show like And Just Like That,
I was just gonna say.
which many women in my life love, gay
Mhm,
men too, but
mhm,
they'll tell you, as they tell you how much they love this show, it's a farce, it's absurd, it makes no sense, and it's not real.
mhm.
Why don't we have more real portrayals of the challenges that you're speaking of when it comes to being a woman in this world? I just don't see that on screen. I
Well,
don't see our conversation on screen.
I don't think we see real portrayals of what it's like to be a man
Oof.
and negotiating contemporary masculinity on screen,
Okay.
right?
Wow. Yeah.
Like, I think we
Yeah.
see farcical notions of what it's like to be a man, which is like
Or like superheroes, which are just
yes,
like, like
right.
most men's
Yeah.
favorite person on a screen is an action hero, which is
Mhm.
just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now so much television, so much media that is fictional is really leaning into genre in ways that, like, allow it to, not have to grapple with as many of the, like, contemporary realities. So whether that's, like, a thriller or a mystery or a historical romance. Like, I like all of these shows. I like these movies, but at the same
Mhm.
time, like, they're not necessarily like they're not plumbing the depths of contemporary life.
Exactly.
And I think and this is like the escapist desire has so much to do with our contemporary politics and COVID and
Yeah.
all of that
Oh,
together
yeah.
that like especially the movie theater, like if you're making a movie that is going to be big
Mhm.
enough to hit film screens, like
Oh, yeah.
you have to make it into this huge, legible, bombastic, like not connected to reality in any
Not at
way
all. Yeah.
narrative.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like, the thing I if what comes to mind is something like Past Lives, right? Which is actually
Yeah.
directed by the same person who directed Dakota Johnson's current vehicle, but Past Lives
Mhm.
is a quiet movie that's just like, what happens when you are happily married, and then there's this guy that you used to be close with, and now he's in your life for a little
Yeah.
bit again?
Yeah.
Like
I think that movie was saying to everybody, like, "No marriage will make you actually happy because you'll
or
always think of another one that got away."
yeah, so you have to choose your choice, right?
Oof. Damn. Choose your choice.
And
Yeah.
she does. She chooses her spoiler. She chooses her choice, and it's not that she's, like, desperately unhappy with him.
No.
It's just
Yeah.
that there are these other
Yeah.
lives that could have existed.
Yeah. Question for you. I have this thesis now that, like, the actual problems facing actual women in the actual world, they're rarely portrayed in TV, in film, etc. Does reality TV, in some ways, get at those challenges maybe a little bit better than scripted? I don't watch all of Love Island because that is too many episodes, and I am sorry that happened to them, but I ain't got time for all that, and I'm not watching all that. But there are these moments that flash up in that show
Hmm.
where you see a woman on the show have to deal with a man being a bonehead, and she deals with it. There's one
Mhm.
character on this season who has to tell a potential suitor, "I have a kid. I'm a
Mhm.
mamacita. I'm a mama."
Mhm.
And he's like, he doesn't get it. But, like, in real time, you see this woman dealing with this thing with the real man, and it almost maybe kind of feels like it's getting to real challenges that real women face, but also
Yeah.
I know that reality TV is not real in so many ways.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, and I don't think that it's meant to be a representation so much as, like to me, the reality television narratives really remind me of, like, how women have historically used, like, gossip magazines and
Mhm.
romance novels. Like, it's a way to work through concepts from your own life in a slightly
Mhm.
deferred way, right?
Ah.
So, like, it's distance. So you can be like, well, that is totally ridiculous that these women feel like they have to pray before they get their like Botox on Secret Lives of Mormon Housewives. But
Yeah.
also, here is me thinking through my thoughts about like, how do I balance my own personal code of morality
Mhm.
with this desire, like these ideals of femininity? Like, what
Mhm.
does my code of person or code of morals or religion or like
Mhm.
societal belief say about what a woman should look like? How do I think
Mm.
about that? Or
Mhm.
like, how do I think about um how women should be treated if they've been through abusive situations? Like, there's
Yeah.
just all sorts of things that come up in reality television that like you might have those issues happening in your own life, but not might not
Not
have a
on that
way or an
scale.
opportunity to talk
Mhm.
about them, right? Or
There
to
you go.
think about them
We don't have confessional
specifically.
cameras in our lives. And
No.
if we do, it's like therapy, and the person you want to hear it doesn't. Because your
Right.
therapist is not gonna call that guy and
Right.
be like, "You pissed her off."
Yeah. No, but so it's a way to like think about these things that is less intimate and scary than
Yeah.
thinking about it in your own life.
We have unpacked this idea of feminist exhaustion. We've unpacked this idea of feminist dystopia
Mm.
and talked about this reality that, like a lot of TV and film that we consume, never gets at the real issues that are underlying these big themes that we're talking about. So now, question for you, Anne Helen Petersen, great thinker. If you had to design a TV show or movie or hell, TikTok series that got to some of these big issues that we've discussed that American women are grappling with day in and day out, lack of a safety net, untenable standards of excellence, spouses who don't show up the way that they should. What is the show that you make that gets
Does
at
it
that?
does it have to be fictional?
No. Whatever you want it to be.
Ah,
And you have
so
unlimited budget.
this is where I think, like, we're at this really fascinating moment, and we've talked about it a little bit on the show with, like, it feels like there's no monoculture, right? And part of
Yeah.
that is the fracturing of, like, streaming services, but I also think that people are watching and consuming in different ways across media. So, I'm spending far less time watching TV.
Mhm.
Part of that's summer, but then
Yeah.
I'm listening to so many more podcasts, the new Amy Poehler podcast, and that to me, that is a narrative of a woman who is very publicly negotiating what it's like to be someone who is, like, been through the ringer when it
Oh,
comes to
yeah.
work, had a
Oh, yeah.
very public marriage and divorce.
Yeah.
Like, how do you think about creativity as you age? How do you think about what work means to you and what body image means to you? Like, all of those things are being negotiated on her podcast as this ongoing narrative in a way
Oh.
that's really interesting to me.
Well, and there was one really great clip she had in one of her earliest episodes of that show, Amy Poehler, I wanna say in the pilot. She was like, "I'm kinda half-assing this
Yes.
because I'm half-assing most things in my life right now. I
Yeah.
don't wanna give 100% all the time, so just know that." And she
Yeah.
says it on her own show, and you're
Yep.
listening, and you're like, "Yeah, girl. Yeah."
And it's, like, kind of shading her ex-husband, Will Arnett, who has this podcast where he and his
Yes.
his co-hosts are kind of half-assing it all the
Yeah.
time.
But let me tell you the difference between her and Will Arnett. Amy Poehler can do a good interview.
Amy Poehler gets better guests. Just
Yes.
saying.
Yes.
I think she does. She does do a
She
better
does.
interview. She's funnier.
She's funnier. Well, and she's
Saying that.
she's getting at what you're talking about, this idea of, like, asking those big life questions
Mm,
in ways that scripted television and movies just don't.
mhm,
She, by doing that, is able to get someone like Dakota Johnson
mhm.
to open up.
Right. And it's a bit of show and it's a bit of tell. So some of it is the question she's actually asking people, and then
Mhm.
part of it is in the show itself, she has interviewed so many people already. The show has only been happening for a couple of months, but
Yeah.
already has shown how much intimacy she has with men and with women,
Yes.
right? Like,
Yes.
she has friends. She has good coworkers. Like,
Yeah.
she shows what it's like to be a collaborator. And that
Mhm.
to me, like, I think as a feminist demonstration of, like,
Yeah.
showing what it's like to figure out all this stuff, like how to make work, like, especially as a woman, she's just barely over 50, I think. Like, what's your second act? What does that look
That.
like?
That. Yeah. What I hear you saying is the future is podcasting.
As 2 podcasters, that's what we're
Yes.
sa but I do
Yes.
think that, like, these new forms of media are where these narratives are percolating, not in mainstream television or film.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if I had, and listen, I say all of this as a man. I'm a man. I don't think I can ever fully be a feminist because I can never know what it's like to be a woman. But I support, I hope to be an ally aspirationally. But when I think of like what would be the truest portrayal of the challenges of womanhood, motherhood, career life, etc., I would set a reality show in a black church
Mm. Mm, mm, mm.
because these days most black churches are actually run by women and not by men. And even
Mhm,
if there is a male pastor as a figurehead, the women keep that church running.
mhm.
And all of them also have jobs. And a lot of them have kids. And a lot of them are not having the can I have it all conversation. They're having the this shit needs to get done conversation.
What
So let's do
denomination?
it.
What denomination?
We were very Pentecostal apostolic. So, like, socially conservative, but also a black church. So, not into some of the stuff that, like, the hard right evangelical white Christians were into, you know?
Right, there's little rednecky over there.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And so, like, we did the thing that a lot of church folks do, which is like being separate from the secular, but there
Mhm.
was never that undercurrent of perverse nationalism that sometimes you feel in other parts of the Christian world.
And would you do it in San Antonio, or would you do it somewhere else?
I think San Antonio is an incredibly interesting city to do it in because it has
Yeah.
been majority minority for a long time. When I was there growing up, it was two-thirds Latino, and I believe it's still the same case. You just like you can't you walk outside of your door in San Antonio and you realize it's not central casting.
It's intersectional by default.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So you'd be
Yes.
dealing with all of these things by default. And
Exactly.
also, like, the very real political pressures of, like, being in a state like Texas where,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
so many of these political realities come to bear.
Oh, yeah. And you just had, like, more like, I have been in LA now for 10 years, and it's really interesting to me the way that in a place like Southern California, the liberals and the conservatives avoid each other at all costs.
Mhm.
And in Texas, in a place like San Antonio, you just usually don't ask. You just go about your day.
So this actually reminds me that the TV show that I think best represented everything that we're talking about here with women, like, but also I think like what it's like to live in America at a particular moment in time is Friday Night Lights. Like
Oh, another
every
Texas show.
I know. Well, and everything that Connie Britton was going through in that show is like, how do you negotiate a position of power when
Mhm.
everyone actually like thinks your husband is the boss of everything, right? Like,
Mhm.
how do you essentially like put on this mask of like Southern femininity in order to get what you want? And what is
Yeah.
lost when you do that? How are you a mother? How are you tender? How are you a wife? Like, all of those things. What have you given up for your husband's career? What are you not giving up for your husband's career?
Mhm. Oh, I
And I
love
was just
that.
thinking of it because it was shot in Austin, and
Yeah.
when something's actually shot in the place that it's supposed to be, it just feels different.
So, in all of your coverage of feminism and how it manifests in the culture, do you think that or do you feel hope when you look at what women of Gen Z or Gen Alpha are dealing with, talking about, going through?
I do feel like there's this real understanding that, like, whatever we're doing, if it's not intersectional in every meaning of the word, and in every meaning of the word, then it's bullshit.
Mm,
Like, and that wasn't around when I was in my 20s, right?
yeah.
Like, it was like, diversity is good, but also, like, we're past racism, like, that
Uh-huh.
was we were in that very, like,
We were the folks
post-racial
who
moment.
chanted "Race doesn't matter" when Obama won the Iowa caucus.
Oh my
Remember
god.
that?
Oh my god.
Do you remember that? I was like, "This cannot work. What?"
Yeah, so, like, part of the reaction to millennials is saying, like, that bullshit moment is bullshit. And so but, like, we're talking about sexual identity, like, all sorts of different things, right? And
Mhm.
also, I think things might change because I think there was much more solidarity, class solidarity amongst millennials in their 20s. And then as
Mm.
they got into their 30s, and some people were able to buy homes and some people were not.
Mm.
And especially some people were able to buy homes when mortgage rates were
Yeah.
really low. Like that really
Yeah.
like created this even more stark division within
Mhm.
millennials. But I do think there is a lot of solidarity right now about there are no jobs.
Yeah.
We have to figure out a new way. Like like obviously millennials oriented their lives around work and that worked out
Yeah.
really poorly. So what are we going to do instead?
Yeah.
Um so yeah, I'm hopeful, but I also at the same time I just think that like conditions are bad, right? Like when
Yeah.
when conditions are bad on a drive, like let's say you're doing a 6-hour drive on like a combination of like treacherous roads and mountain passes and freeways, like that drive's always gonna be difficult. But when
Mhm.
it's also blizzarding, it's gonna
Yeah.
be even more like, when the conditions are bad, that drive is always going to be really, really arduous, and a lot of people aren't gonna
Mhm.
make it. Like,
Yeah.
not die, I'm saying, like, they're not gonna do it.
Yeah.
And so I, like I hope that some of our exhaustion doesn't ward younger generations off, instead inspires them and says, like, "These
Yeah.
people, they lost the plot.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
let's find a new one, and then they
Yeah.
can join us."
Yeah. Or will we see older generations say, the plot you thought that I was living back then, actually, it wasn't that plot. I've been incredibly refreshed to hear Michelle Obama talk so candidly now about
Mhm.
how hard it was to be married to a man like Barack Obama.
Yeah.
I find it pretty remarkable. You
But
know,
also it sparked all of these marriage, like, dissolution rumors, right? Like, you can't
yeah,
talk about how hard marriage is without people being like, "They're breaking up right now."
exactly. Exactly. And like the last cycle of that coverage for the Obamas, uh, Barack and Michelle were like, contrary to belief and rumors, we stayed together. It was rough, but we did. And I don't know. It's like sometimes I'm like, why is my former president and first lady celebrity podcasters now? But also, thanks for being so open. And maybe if this
Well,
helps other folks have a conversation about love and how it works, it's good. So I can
yep.
make peace with the fact that they are now celebrity
And
podcasters.
tastemakers, uh,
Yes.
well, the other option is like, "Oh, we're the Clintons, and the way that we make money is, like, being friends with Jeffrey Epstein." So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so there are other options.
Yeah.
But I do think that, like, both of them like to talk. Like, Michelle especially. I think she's like, "I have thoughts, and I couldn't
Yeah.
share them for a long time,
Exactly.
and now I will."
Exactly. So much of her feels so liberated. The clothing that she's wearing, she used to be strictly J. Crew aesthetic because she had to be.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
now she wears what the hell she wants to. And I'm like, yes, ma'am. And the hair is changed
The
up. And I'm just
hair.
like, do it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I want to ask you one more little question, but I want to
Okay.
close the loop on this. If we are thinking about this idea of feminist exhaustion, where to see it, how to find it, I think we've kind of landed the plane by saying it might not be in a TV show or a movie, but there's probably a podcaster of a certain age who feels real enough to just talk about it.
It's not Call Her Daddy, I'll tell you that. But
Yeah. Yeah.
no, I do think, like, if you're looking for it, you need to be curious, and it's not gonna be necessarily where you think it's gonna be.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
might also be in your own friendships. Like, that's something that I think we've
Mm.
ceased doing is looking in the world around us. Like,
Oof.
sometimes I see my own visions of feminism, like an older lady that lives on the island, you know what I mean? Like, your
Yeah.
visions can be elsewhere,
I like
but
that.
you have to be curious and interested.
Listeners, viewers, if you liked this conversation, you need to go check out Anne Helen Petersen's Substack. It is called Culture Study. In this newsletter, she breaks down really hard ideas like feminist dystopia and feminist exhaustion, but it's digestible, incredibly well written, and your comment section is lit.
It is
It's very
really
fun.
good.
Yeah,
It's really
yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much, Sam. This has been such a pleasure and a delight.